People of Reddit, what is a dead giveaway that you're being cheated on? Story 1. It tends to be a pretty good sign when your dog vomits up another man's underwear. I had to stay late at work for a few nights over the course of a month where things were pretty hectic. Of course, as any good husband does, I let my partner know ahead of time when I'd be staying back at the office, and for around how long I expected to be there. This worked out well, as her job never really called for late shifts, meaning she was always back at home to feed our dog and make sure that he didn't start to panic that his humans weren't home. Our dog was a Cocker Spaniel. For those who aren't familiar with the breed, they're known for eating until they quite literally explode, and they just love to get into things that they shouldn't be in. Cue me coming home to see the dog horking down his food a few hours later than his normal feeding time. I figured that was kind of strange, but maybe something came up. I'd ask her about it later. A couple hours pass, I'm watching TV, and the dog is making all sorts of noises, burping, stomach gurgling, and just kinda moping around the apartment. I'm worried, so I let him up on the couch and say, "Hey bud, not feeling so hot?" And right in that moment, as if to say, "Yeah dad, I've actually got something you'll probably want to sit down for," in one big hork he upchucked a half-torn pair of barf-soaked tighty-whities covered in kibble. These weren't mine. I haven't owned a pair of tighty-whities since elementary school. So that's how I found out my wife was screwing her coworker, the grown-ass man who rocked tighty-whities like a schoolboy. Honestly, that's probably one of the most painful parts. But in the divorce, you can sure as shit bet that I got custody of my dog. No way was I gonna let that mad lad go with her. But he risked a hospital trip to bring me that proof. Story 2. When they become cagey about things they're normally open about. I've known a couple people who did this. Very open, like to talk about their entire day. Would answer near any question, and then suddenly they'd be out one night with their friends, and the details of the night could be summed up in a couple words, and there'd be odd gaps in the story while they remember and try to sort through it all. Story 3. I had suspicions that my ex was cheating on me for months. One night, she half-heartedly invites me to go out drinking with her girlfriends. I decline, as I wanted her to have her own friends outside of our relationship. As she gets ready for the evening, she's all happy and humming, which is not something she usually does. She takes a shower, and then I see she's getting all dolled up like I haven't seen her do in years. But not only that, she's also wearing her sexiest underwear, the stuff that she'd wore to signal to me that she was horny. I simply say, "Why are you wearing that?" And she says, "It's just what I grabbed." So I say, "You know what? Give me a few minutes to get ready. I think I will go with you tonight." She had a complete meltdown after that. Starts accusing me of accusing her of cheating, and not trusting her, and hurting her feelings. Of course, I was a fool and let her play me, and I ended up apologizing. But I knew. However, things went down, and all knowledge of that kinda left my mind until years after she had left me, and I remembered all that shit, along with a bunch more. Yeah, she was cheating, I have no doubt about it. This feels like a good point in time to throw a story of my own in. My dead giveaway is kind of 2 points, one of which is more a preventative maintenance. Firstly, if they want a break, probably not a great sign. Yellow flag at best, I'd say. Second, if they're a partier that likes to get wasted, stoned, crunk, whatever you want to call it, especially if they go with more than just their girlfriends and maybe gay guy friends, or vice versa if you're a woman. I dated a girl who was a massive stoner, which I'm not. She liked to frequent my city's equivalent of trap houses and hang out with fuckboy types. We hit a rough patch, and she called for a 2-week break. I later found out that within the first 3 days of our 14-day break, she had gone out to get some weed from this guy and ended up losing her virginity to him that same night. Yeah, she was a classy gal. Story 4. My ex used to get so angry if I walked in the door and went to the bathroom right away. I drive an hour home from work due to traffic. Having to pee is not abnormal after that. But he made it a thing. The bathroom was right inside the door, and he would be at the other end of the house. Apparently going into the bathroom before seeing him was equivalent to me washing off the scent of my lover. Every time he accused me of anything, looking back, it is exactly what he was guilty of. Story 5. They tell you in a moment of anger, then try to pull it back. Had an ex do this a few times. Boy, was she embarrassed after the 3rd or 4th time she said it, and I actually believed her. Broke up with her that night. It's not like us sleeping together was all that good anyway. My laptop was a far better partner. And of course, cue the spam texting and missed calls. "I was just joking, babe. I love you. Let's just move past this. I won't do it again." Yeah, right. Sorry, sweet cheeks, but that ship has sailed. Yeah, if this is someone's go-to threat, just leave. Even if they don't intend to cheat, if they say it enough times, they could very easily just normalize it in their minds and slip up. Plus, beyond that, it's just a manipulative thing to do. Someone who does this isn't long-term material. Story 6. Constantly saying, "Why don't you trust me?" when I said I wasn't keen on her going out with a certain group of people. In my defense, she was going out with her sister, the sister's boyfriend, and the sister's boyfriend's best friend, who was also one of her exes. And the only rule is that I'm not allowed to be there because the sister's boyfriend doesn't like me. And, from what I'm told, they always spend at least a third of the time joking that the ex still had feelings for my girlfriend. But of course, with all that going on, I was the one in the wrong for not trusting her. Story 7. When their roommate asks to meet with you privately and tells you that your GF was having someone over in their room with the music loud. The same thing she'd do when her and I would get busy at her place. I was dating a woman abroad, and I was working at the time. Her roommate was a guy from Australia who I was buddies with and had met through her, and came home very late some nights, a few weeks before I got back. Buddy risked losing his... Here's a fun one courtesy of my dad and his second wife. When the tire tread pattern on the fresh snow in your driveway matches the uncommon tires on your brother-in-law's new work vehicle. My dad's second wife was having an affair with my uncle, who was my dad's sister's husband. In other words, his freaking brother-in-law. And my dad figured it out by coming home early from work one night and noticing a distinctive tire width and tread pattern in his driveway that matched my uncle's work truck, who had no reason for being there that night. He went inside and asked her if my uncle had been there, and she acted surprised and denied it. He then mentioned the tire marks and why he recognized them, and the house of cards promptly crumbled. Damn, that's some big brain detective game right there. I don't think many people would have caught something like the width and tread of a pair of tires. Maybe if they were massive off-roading tires or something, but to be like, those don't look like the Michelins my wife has, those look like the tread from a Goodyear Duratrack. Damn, good for this guy. Story 9. When they want to take a break and reevaluate things in their relationship, but in reality, they just want to get piped by their ex without feeling any guilt. I had this happen to me once. She went from, "I like you so much, I can't wait to see you again," to, "I'm not ready for this," and her explanation just didn't seem to add up. She finally confessed that she was just using me to get over her ex, and he'd asked to meet up with her one day, and she wanted to end things with me, so she still had the option to do stuff with her ex without guilt. I blocked her straight away. The next day, she has the nerve to make a new snap, so she can message me and ask if we can try again. I'm guessing the ex didn't want anything to do with her either. Story 10. Funny story, I was in Arizona with my ex, and she had this dealer who I was sort of friends with, and I was talking to him about where I could buy a knife. He didn't know that I just like knives and have a collection back home, so he told me where to get one because he thought I knew and was planning to stab the guy she was cheating with. Story 11. My brother recently found out his wife has been cheating with a dentist that works at her office, and she also started hiding her phone at night. He only found out because the wife of the dude contacted my brother. My sister-in-law claimed it was just some simple flirting. Now she bought a new phone with a new phone number and got a new credit card. Story 12. When you catch them in the act, and they don't stop. I walked in on an ex cheating on me. I stood there in a trance for a second to realize what was going on, and then I realized we were done. I started getting naked and said, "I just need a minute to get hard and I'll join in." The guy couldn't get up fast enough, and my ex just sat there bawling. I grabbed my essential stuff and walked out. Never saw or heard from her again. Story 13. My ex-wife and I had different work schedules, so often she'd be getting ready to go out with friends while I was getting ready for bed. That was normal in our relationship. She suddenly started to spend way more time on her appearance, wearing makeup almost every night instead of once in a while, buying new clothes, changing outfits a bunch before going out, and asking my opinion on them. I could go on, but I remember being so lonely and confused, I actually looked up one of those "Is Your Spouse Cheating" quizzes on Cosmo or something. And she rang every goddamn bell. A lot of those things are cliche for a reason. Story 14. I've been the side dude a few times. My biggest giveaway is when she tells you about her friend, but she's always quick to point out that they're not really friends. In fact, she doesn't even like the person. He's just obsessed with her, and won't leave her alone, but they're always doing things together. Another good way to tell if she has a side guy if you're living together is to make sure you keep the rim of the toilet seat clean of piss dribbles. If you come home and there's piss dribbles on the rim, a dude was there. Story 15. When you're sleeping over at your boyfriend's place and have work the next morning, but you can't sleep, so you walk out only to see your boyfriend minimize a chat in Discord immediately after he realizes you're standing right behind him. Oh, and a separate incident with a different boyfriend. You notice they haven't posted to social media for a while like they normally do, so you type in their name to the search bar only to find a duplicated profile with an open relationship online, where they're engaged. Frickin' cheaters, man. I'll tell you what, not the brightest bunch, but it always catches up with them. Story 16. Being gone for hours with no explanation, just, I was with my buddy. Suddenly all of his friends were moving and they had to help. Or their friend had a birthday and they dropped by to say happy birthday and got caught up. One miserable excuse after another. I don't know how my friend put up with that shit. Story 17. When they can't stop talking to this other person, including at 2 a.m. when you're trying to go to sleep. They also want to spend weekends together to work on their songwriting or assignments, and she tells you nothing happened, but then gets scared and apologizes for them wrestling together on the couch next to you while hanging out at your shared place. But don't worry, it was just playful. Story 18. I've learned that some women basically want you to know. So if you start hearing about their new friend or coworker and they basically start telling you all about how much fun they are and how cool they are or have lots of new stories that always seem to include that person, then there's a good chance they're cheating with them. Having friends of the opposite gender isn't an issue, but it's that new friend that they can't stop talking about that you've got to worry about. Along with that, if they're very quick to accuse you of cheating, especially if the accusations are something that they normally wouldn't do. I met a girl years ago, originally through a huge group of friends who gamed together. I actually met her through another woman in that group, so the group was pretty mixed and playfully flirting was like 80% of the group's jokes. That said, at a certain point, all of a sudden talking to any woman at all, not even just flirting, literally team chatting with someone who sounded female while playing, was something that might start a fight, and turns out she'd been talking to, flirting with, and eventually going out with another guy for almost a month prior to me finding out. Story 19. A few years ago, I had 3 jobs and ended up getting off one early one day. I called my now ex to tell him and see if he wanted to go out to the store to get me some new bed sheets. He got really awkward really quick and told me to take my time getting home and that I could go to the store by myself and pick out the new sheets myself. That's when I remembered that he had said he was going to be hanging out with a chick who was his best friend's little sister, who, by the way, was 17 and he was 21. At first I thought nothing of it, because no reasonable individual would mess around with a minor and do so with someone who's like their younger sibling. They also wouldn't be dumb enough to still try and do the deed after I said I was on my way home. Like literally 5 minutes away. Then I realized, he's a 21-year-old with a crack in a curtain of my bedroom window. He saw me staring and it was so comical. They got out of bed so fast the curtains got ripped off the wall. But yeah, if someone is ever really awkward on the phone and tells you not to rush home, you should probably put the pedal to the metal to catch them in the act. Story 20. I don't have confirmation if I was cheated on, but he would make more time for other girls than me. He would also tell me about girls he talked to wanting to date him, and I had to tell him to stop talking to them. I just couldn't put any trust in him knowing we rarely talked and that every time I would want to hang out, he'd be with another girl. Story 21. Nice thing about tropical birds, some of them like to imitate human speech. It's a pretty dead giveaway when your parrot is screaming, "Give it to me hard and fast before my husband gets home." Story 22. First hint, you get randomly called with a wrong name by your wife. You ask, "Who the hell is John?" She answers, "Oh, it's just a friend I met in an online chat with some random people that I never told you about. We just speak sometimes, it's nothing special." And you actually believe her and forget about it. Second hint, months later she wants to stay on vacation for a few days longer than you to do some things she needs to do. You suggest to stay too and help, but she profoundly refuses without explanation. Why? You just think she needs some alone time. Fair enough. But then she doesn't answer or call the phone the whole time she's there except for, "Sorry, I was sleeping, going to sleep again." Third hint, more months later, you stumble upon their half-a-year chat history where it's pretty obvious that she was actually cheating the whole time. Story 23. When your wife tells you she's gonna go visit her good friend in another state, who happens to be the guy she dated before you. I actually met this guy once and he was a nice dude, so at first I was like, oh, cool, when are we going? But then she clarified it was just her going. I mentioned I wasn't okay with that, but knew she'd do it anyways. In the years we were together, this was pretty much the dynamic. It always seemed like I had a say or a choice, but once her mind was set on something, it was final regardless of how I felt. And she always made me feel guilty for disagreeing with or not trusting her. This time, rather than getting upset or frustrated, I calmly stated, I'm not okay with this. I'd prefer if you didn't, but we both know you're going to go anyway regardless of how I feel. She denied it and said I was overreacting, but that same day she bought the ticket and booked a Brazilian wax appointment for the following day before she left. That's when I decided it was over, and I finally felt at peace. I moved to another room, never slept with her again, and left 6 months later when our lease was up. This is what people need to understand. When you're with someone who gets a kick out of pulling a sheet that thin over your eyes and doesn't actually care about your input, it's time to go. Eventually, they'll find someone they actually want to be with and want to have input from, but they don't see you as respectable enough to be that person for them. They don't care about you, and the best way to keep your power in that relationship is to just stay calm, state your mind, and if they don't care, walk away. Don't give ultimatums, don't try to manipulate back, just leave. Story 24. When a random person sends you evidence of your wife having an affair with the neighbor down the street. Yep, true story. 11 years together. Also, all the things everyone's saying in here are very true. Don't be oblivious, don't ignore it. Get the out when you see it. You'll be safer. You will recover. I did. My heart mended after that 11-year relationship. I am extremely successful now in all aspects of my life, and you have no idea what impact a cheating spouse will have on your mental state, your career goals, your family, relationships, etc. until you leave. So if you're in this situation, you truly are better to just get out and be alone for a little while. Good luck. Story 25. He started locking his phone. Then someone posts a comment on his Facebook business page about him carrying on with one of his employees. Then, I got a DM from a random woman asking if it's true that we have an open relationship, because that's what he's been telling everyone. After we separated, he started posting boudoir pics of his bartender on Facebook, and that's how most of my friends found out that our marriage was over. Story 26. The one thing I can contribute is if they don't let you use their phone. As in, flight delayed, your phone died, all you want to use it for is to get on Pinterest, and they say no. Even just changing the passcode randomly to make sure you can't get in. I feel strongly you should never be able to use others' phones, not for snooping, that's problematic. But when you want to know how old Sigourney Weaver is and you pick up the closest phone to find out, and then find the passcode's just changed, that's an issue. This one really got to me when I learned how common it actually was to not let your partner see your phone. I personally don't use my girlfriend's phone for Googling stuff. I would rather just use my own, or if I don't know where mine is, I'll ask her to Google something for me. But I can't think of any logical reason why someone would try so desperately to keep their device under lock and key from their partner. If it's a matter of locking their phone because their partner doesn't like the spicy content they watch, or their hobbies and search history, then maybe they aren't the partner for them. Story 27. When she complains about you not driving 3 hours to come spend the night with her every week. When she won't come see you even once a month. Then, when you do go see her for Valentine's Day, she's not wearing the ring you gave her, and says she gets blackout drunk at house parties every weekend. Then, breaks up with you as you're leaving because you have to work the next morning and it's already 2 a.m. and you still have a 3-hour drive back home. Story 28. In my last relationship, he was all over this girl, always around her, talking to her, and overall, she seemed to be the only thing on his mind. My friends also told me straight up he was talking to this other girl behind my back, and told me he showed them pictures of their texts to each other and that they were flirting. Yeah, I was upset and super pissed, because 2 days earlier he said he was having home life struggles, so we had to take a break from our relationship. And then 2 freaking days after that, this happened. I'm honestly glad I broke up with him. He was a walking red flag. Yep, there's the whole take a break thing again. If there's no real reason behind it, it's just them trying to avoid being the bad guy until they can mess around with other people and ghost you. If this guy was really having home life troubles like he said, he could have just told her he'd be a bit distant and need his space. Story 29. I was accused of cheating when I broke up with my ex. All her friends hated me because of all the wild stories she would tell them. They thought I was an a-hole. But later they found out she was trying to mess, and they all came to mine. X was super mad. And the cherry on the cake of it all for me is that these were her lifelong friends. They'd known each other since kindergarten. Good riddance. At least her friends were decent people. Chick was a serial manipulator and got what she deserved. But that's it for today, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Feel free to leave your story in the comments below. I'd love to do stories on them in the future. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.